Welcome, mutineers, as we sail into uncharted seas to discover our highest selves. Today's interview, it's with Hope Fitzgerald. It's difficult to explain exactly what it is that Hope does, but what she does is she brings hope and confidence. What she does is she helps people like you transcend, to exist at a higher frequency in these times of change. She's written books. She works with people individually, and she helps people be truly awakened and understand the highest version of themselves so that they can affect the world around them to make this world a more light-filled and positive space. So enjoy today's Mindful Mutiny. Welcome to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. I'm Jeremy Vanward. I'm a healer and a transformational coach. My mission is to change lives from stress to joy, from stagnation to momentum, and from burnout to hope. Mindful Mutiny is a podcast about people who thoughtfully rebel against the status quo by bravely pursuing their highest potential. Please don't forget, please like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. We are in a growth stage right now, and it feels really good to see every single new subscriber, and that is you. So today, please welcome a very special guest to the Mindful Mutiny podcast, Hope Fitzgerald. Hope, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jeremy.
Hope Fitzgerald is a spiritual teacher, intuitive dowser, coach, and author dedicated to spreading hope and transformation. As a healer, end-of-life midwife, and certified neurofeedback practitioner, Hope has over 30 years of experience guiding individuals through profound healing and personal growth. She is the visionary behind the Infinity Wave, a 10th generation energetic tool revealed to her through life-altering visions, which empowers individuals to break free from limitations and expand their consciousness. Hope also leads international trips, offers workshops on mastering change dynamics, and provides support for those experiencing spiritual awakenings. Her book, The Infinity Wave, offers a practical guide to personal and collective evolution, encouraging everyone to embrace their infinite potential. And so much of what you are about is everything that I'm about too. And I want to hear all about the Infinity Wave book that you have written and you've got out there. Tell us, what is this?
What is the Infinity Wave? Everybody wants to know. Well, I think the best thing to do is to tell you how it came in, because that was a tidal wave in my life, let's say. Okay, so let's go back to 2010. And until that time in my life, I had been on a spiritual path really since I was a kid. Always very interested. I asked my mom to take me to all the different spiritual houses in our town. I was seeking something at 9. I was just trying to get my hands around something. I didn't quite make it at 9, but then when I was 17, I learned TM. I learned transcendental meditation, and I started meditating. And from there, everything started to open up. And I eventually went to the community in Scotland known as Findhorn, and I spent some time there. That completely blew out all my circuits in the best ways possible, and taught me how to live in a state of manifestation. And they taught the laws of manifestation. This is well before The Secret and all of that. And so I started living sort of a dual life. When I came home from Findhorn and I had started to learn how to do hands-on healing, I just started going down the rabbit holes, many rabbit holes. But I noticed that when I tried to talk about this to anybody, I got these strange stares, rolled eyeballs, the whole 9 yards. So I started to live kind of a double life. I had my regular life over here, and I had my spiritual life on a track that was parallel but separate. And I learned to keep that very quiet and sort of as we used to say, my own private Idaho, right? And I don't know if that's a phrase that anybody knows anymore, but that's what we called it. So that was great. And I just kept enriching that part of my life as I led my other part of life. until I got to 2010. And that year was one of those watershed years where I don't know if anybody else experiences, but there are times when a lot comes together all at the same time, and it really forces us to make these big choices and big changes. And that's what that year was for me, through really difficult circumstances. By about October, I knew that I was on zero physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I went to back sound healing workshops with Tom Kenyon in the Pacific Northwest. Wonderful sound healer, just an amazing human being. And I went into that with this, like a warrior on a horse, to scrub my inner bowl. That's the only language I had for it at the time. I just wanted to cleanse myself, not just of that year, but really of all story. I just wanted to start something new. And I can't tell you exactly why, but that was my fervent desire. And so I went through these. Each day there were these practices that he delivered that kind of encouraged scraping of all this stuff. And by the end of the workshop, the very last practice of the last day, I was so cleansed that I only had one question left. And I went into the last practice with this question. And I try to understand why a lot of these things had happened that particular year. And then in that practice, I received my answer. And it was such a turnaround, different way of thinking about it, that I was so full of gratitude for this understanding, because it freed me to move into gratitude rather than into any kind of where I was sitting, which was still a little bit of victimhood. And so that at the end of this practice, in my mind's eye, I was sitting on a bench quietly, but in my mind's eye, I went prostrate on the floor, and out of me sprang this sentence, these sentences. One sentence, I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. It just came from my core. It was not a mental thing. I was so grateful. I surrendered to spirit, to source. Well, when you do that, things are going to happen. So I go home. I am so empty. I am free as a bird. It is amazing how I feel. And I'm walking across my living room. A dear friend of mine was visiting, and I was starting to tell her about my experience. And I stopped short in my living room because in front of me was a giant wave moving slowly towards me. But I mean, 10 stories, huge wave. And it was beautiful and turquoise and, just the loveliest thing. But there was this kind of ticker tape byline, if you will, kind of going across my consciousness that said, paraphrasing, this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet. If you choose to resist it, things will go much harder for you than if you learn to swim with it or surf it. Then the wave abruptly turned to the side. Now I was looking at that big letter C curling wave where you'd expect a surfer to come through the barrel. And the byline with that was, the physics of a wave is it pulls away from the shore, deepens down into the seabed, and that's how the crust is created. So it said, as the wave does that, just like that, you leave all your book learning, all your so-called knowledge on the shore. Go to the earth, go to the wisdom keepers of the earth for your knowledge. Mix that with this incoming push thing. And then instead of the water just falling back down into the ocean, it turned into a figure eight made of flowing water. Now I can show you a little image of that if that's helpful for people.
Oh, I'm definitely getting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like that.
Yes.
Okay. And that hung out in front of my consciousness about 18 inches high, and there was no byline, and it didn't go away. So there I was 3 days later, walking around with this filmy figure eight in front of me. And it was kind of annoying, to tell you the truth. And so I sat down with my dowsing rods. Now, by that point, I had been a dowser for 15 years or so. And I had taught myself how to dowse. So I was in my own silo with it. And so I had a way of asking questions that was, I thought, unique to me. I don't know. I was just doing it. I didn't know there were any other dowsers out there at this time. Turns out there are, but I didn't know that. So I sat down with my rods and I started to ask, what is this thing? And through a series of dowsing sessions, I was told, well, this represents a tool that can be used to help you through the times that are ahead. This push of evolution that is coming, you're going to need something to help you through it. Inherent in this watery flow is what I was told, 10th dimensional love and compassion. Okay, so it doesn't matter 10th, whatever the dimension is. It's more than 3D, let's put it that way. And this high frequency of love and compassion that we do not experience here on planet Earth, because we've got emotion. So, things get dense down here. But this is so pristine. And when you apply the watery flow of love and compassion to 3D, this is going to cause an evolutionary shift. Definitely a spiritual upgrade. And it's going to help you change reality. Well, and then they told me I needed to create workshops about it and start giving workshops in 2011. Okay, well, first of all, here I am on my little quiet private track. The last thing in the world I want to do is create a workshop about spirituality. I was like, no way am I doing that. I sit quietly in the back of the room. This is where I can just not, I can be anonymous. And they literally put a foot in my back and said, no, you have to get out now, and you have to stop being, you'll always be a student. I am a student, but you got to now provide some leadership. I said, no, I do not want to do that. They said, remember what you said? I am a willing vessel. Do with me what you will. Oops. Well, anyway, so I pushed forward. But I have to tell you, and this is why I go back to this original story, the origination story, because I feel that a lot of people have a lot of information. They've read a lot of books. They've done a lot of workshops. They've trained in different modalities. Yet perhaps, like me, they were still standing on the cliff edge with their toes hanging over. And it's not until you actually free fall into the not knowing of what's going to happen next, really letting go of this reality and whatever your so-called knowledge that they said leave on the shore. It's not until you do that you get to that place of full knowing, the gnosis, that there is a mechanism to catch you. The universe can't catch you if you don't leap. And here I was with bookshelves lined. I had all the stuff. I had all the, and it wasn't until I had to step forward without knowing what in the world I was going to be doing. Not only that, but standing in front of people. Not only that, but charging them money. That I just went into free fall. And that is when you start to truly co-create. That's when you are truly in partnership with something and you don't know what it is. The I don't know, the don't know mind. So that is how the rest of it all happened. And that was the key. And so that I say that because a lot of us may recognize, oh, I'm still hanging on, to the edge. And so I encourage everybody to fall off.
Well, you're talking about some really hard things. You start by the inner healing, the cleaning, everything like that. That's hard enough on its own, particularly, when you're talking about all the stuff that we carry with us, all traumas, all grief, all ego, all of these things. To let go of it means to truly let go of what feels like your identity. Okay.
Yes.
But your identity has been built on many of these traumas. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a survivor of this, like these different things that tend to blend further into an identity than they necessarily need to. And so to crack that plaque, if you will, and to let it go, you're absolutely talking about, on the other end, you're jumping across the Grand Canyon. There's land over there, but you're really leaping. And to do that is scary. And what I'm seeing is people being forced to do that right now because of the way that everything is changing. The last 5 years have been bazonkers, and it has changed people's lives and expectations and lifestyles and stuff like that. And so you did this really based upon you feeling tremendously led into this, which I'm really interested in. And I imagine now you're dealing with people who have been forced into, I guess, a point where they have to confront themselves. And then all of a sudden they're finding more out about what they're capable of. Are you seeing that?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, that first vision of the wave predicting a push of evolution, I'm seeing that across the board. I mean, I think that's what you're describing. Everybody is being pushed through. I mean, one of the principles of what I learned at Findhorn, I really brought to the fore in my workshops with the wave, because I really didn't have that much to. I was just, what can I even go on? What can I even teach? And I went back to my teachings at Findhorn, where Teilhard de Chardin, the 19th century Renaissance man, philosopher, priest, anthropologist, et cetera, he used this word peduncle. And he saw that peduncles, and I'll explain what it is, but he saw that as the modality for evolution. So the peduncle is, if you imagine a bottle that comes to the neck, like a wine bottle or something like that. This place where it comes together, the shoulders start to squeeze. In the bottle, in the fat part of the bottle, we know that matter is always in movement. So let's talk about atoms. The atoms are rotating, bouncing around, spiraling, because most things move in a spiral in the bottom of the bottle. And the upward motion pushes them into the shoulders. And as they start to go into the shoulders, there's less room. So they start to bump up against each other. And when they get to that peduncle, which is that place where it becomes the bottleneck, they're really rubbing up, and they go through the bottleneck and they pop out a slightly larger, slightly more elegant molecule. Now, inherent in the tiniest things, the atoms, at that time, that's all Teilhard de Chardin knew, is what he believed was a God spark. And so when you popped through and became a molecule, the God spark would also be larger. So if you apply, and this is a biological term, it's a French term, if you want to think of it another way, you can think of a tulip stem coming up, and where it meets the flower is the peduncle. So he saw that evolution was a series of these squeezing through, getting to be slightly larger, squeezing through, God spark growing. And you can see, okay, I mean, I don't know if science would see it that way right now, but it's an interesting theory. And when he imagined humanity at that time, he saw that there was an evolutionary straight upward spike. So, evolution taking a long time, slowly moving along the timeline like this. We get to man, and all of a sudden it starts to go like this. And at the top, he had Superman or superhuman. Superhuman he saw as an enlarged head, a person with larger brain capacity. And in fact, skulls have been getting larger. They've been measuring skulls that past 30 years. They're getting larger. But it's more, I think, about our capacity to use our brains, in a better way, or more expansive way.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so back to your question, I see this centering point of the wave as the peduncle. We are all on a trajectory all the time of expanding and contracting, going through peduncle, expanding, contracting, going through peduncle. That's the natural order of our lives, our spiritual development, our physical development. We're always getting squeezed. And what has been happening in the last 5 years is a giant squeeze for the entire planet. And on an individual level, everybody is experiencing it as well. So the peduncles we are being pushed through are forcing our evolution, because evolution is upon us. Now, in the past, evolution happened at that slow plodding rate. It was like it's happening somewhere in the background. We're not aware of it. That's not the case anymore. It has been speeding up and speeding up. And even since 2010, it has sped up incredibly. This is why the wave is here to help us with the speediness of things. We can't go and sit in a cave for 20 years, and figure it out. Who are we and what are we doing? And I'm fasting for, no, we don't have that time. We have to have something that can put us into a state of love and compassion, which, by the way, is a flow state. That they equal, right? Love and compassion equals flow, and vice versa. Flow equals love and compassion. So if we can get quickly into a flow state, now we're going to be able to handle these incoming waves and what's being asked of us much more elegantly and easily. And it requires a leave taking, a letting go of the stories, of the identity, of all that we thought was stable and firm and hard fixed. And no. Everything is mutable. So why not deal with life as if it is mutable with a mutable tool?
These are really intense concepts that you're talking about. So for the average person, how does one embrace the infinity wave? And I know that you're talking about it's time to detach from pieces of your identity that are made up. Absolutely. And how? And this wave of energy that's going to sweep us into this future of evolution. How does one in their busy lives make room for moving forward and gathering that spiritual awakening that you're talking about here?
Great question. And that's what I love about the wave, because it is so darn practical. It's easy. We call it the cosmic easy button, because for the average human being going through daily life, it's a lot of repetition. It's right. It's a lot of routine and a lot of not thinking through that routine. We're just doing the motions.
Yeah.
The wave, you can call upon the wave as simply as either looking at it or thinking about it. So think of, okay, we know thought has energy, right? We know through all the water studies that have been done with Dr. Emoto and now Veda Austin, the impact that language, thought has on water of which we are made of, by the way. So we can measure it. We can see the results of it, right? So we know that thought has impact. When we apply a design like this, like the infinity wave, to anything in our lives, to the traffic, to the person who's checking us out with our groceries, to going into a surgery, to going into a difficult conversation with someone. When we apply a flow state to any situation, what's going to happen is it's going to elevate. Now, we don't need to know exactly where it's going to elevate to, but we can literally stand back and just play with this thing. Okay, don't buy in. Don't fully buy in. That's fine. Just try it out and see what happens. So, for instance, I was just on my weekly call on Monday, and I was asking people, okay, how's your week? What's going on? What have you noticed? Blah, blah, blah. And a guy told a story of how he was pumping gas, and he noticed across the street there was a homeless lady, and she was just kind of slumped there on a bench. And some guy came up as he was pumping his gas. Some guy came up and started to berate her, and just you could tell you could hear the words and you could see her reaction and all of this stuff. And he's just on her, right? Berating her. And this guy who was telling the story said, normally I would just like, oh God, get me out of the situation. I just want to drive away. But then he went, wait a minute, I'm going to try the wave. So he stood there and he waved across the street. He said he hadn't done it for 10 seconds when the man abruptly stood up and walked away. Other people on the call talk about using it with crying babies or crying toddlers in grocery stores or on airplanes or whatever it is. I have a gajillion anecdotes about how we can use the thought of this, how it shows up to us is as this figure eight of flowing water, but behind that image is an entire energy source. And when we apply it, just like when we apply, peace to a water bottle and the molecules change, when we apply this in daily life, it changes the molecular structure of what's going on in our immutable lives. Now, we're used to thinking, as I said, of things as being firm and fixed. That's not true. We know physics has told us for a very long time that the desk that I'm here at, the walls, everything looks solid, but actually it's a lot of movement. It's just how slowly the molecules are moving inside the fixed things that makes them appear fixed. But there have been avatars who could come up and put their hand right through this because they are at a vibration where they can become one with anything. So this has been done for decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, probably. So it's only an illusion in a way that they are fixed, and we'll live with them and understand, okay, yeah, that looks fixed. And our lives also can tend to look fixed, but none of it is. It's all mutable. And if in its mutable nature, it all can be changed.
That's something that we can really fool ourselves on when we get into a position that feels very secure. It feels that way. It never actually is.
Right.
And you know what I always am in my kind of previous corporate life, if you will, what I was always telling people is always have that resume ready. Always have it written and ready to go. This is a warning sign at work. This is a warning sign at work. And you probably ought to start, pushing that out there. If you're seeing these things, keep your certifications up to date, like all these sorts of things, right? And there was such a difference between the people who did that and practiced the art really of nothing is permanent, everything is fungible, this is good for now, and you never know what kind of turn the organization or the is going to take in the future. But the people who went, thank you, Jeremy, I appreciate it, and didn't do that when a change inevitably would come, they would be furious, apoplectic with rage. Often it was, really difficult for them to cope with it in their personal lives and everything like that. And it was, so what I'm talking about is like the corporate equivalent of embrace that nothing is permanent. And you see the people's trajectory who do that versus the people who just simply go, this is good, it's secure.
Right.
And they stay with a situation. And sometimes it can be very secure for people. Oftentimes it's just not, because everything in the universe changes. And so, you do, this like spiritual equivalent, and I'm not really sure that we're talking about something that's terribly distant from one another, of prepare yourself for the inevitability that everything changes, the inevitability that you're going to be okay on the other end of a change if you prepare your mind for the fact that that change could come, and it could change where you live, where you work, who you are related to, and who's around you. And you have the right and responsibility, I guess, of arranging the chess pieces around you so that you can embrace that change and that newness that comes from time to time. And, you're also talking a little bit here, and you talked about how you were several years before The Secret became a thing, but you're talking about like manifesting. Can you talk a little bit more about how manifesting can work practically in a person's life?
Well, yes, but I'd like to address the whole change thing, if I could.
I kind of jumped pretty quickly, didn't I?
Yeah.
Go for
That's
it.
all right. That's all right. I think if there's anything that the last 5 years has taught us, it's that change is going to happen.
Yep.
Change is actually a necessary and unending, infinite reality. It's necessary because why are we here? Why are we here? We come in, with nothing but our spirits, with our souls. And we leave with nothing but our spirits or our souls, depending on how you want to identify it. So the point from here to here, from A to Z, the whole point is to go through a series of changes that force this soul to develop, to acquire more facets, to be polished, to whatever state we start in, we want to end having more quality to that soul. That cannot develop without change. Otherwise, you'd start and end in the same space, right? It's change forces the growth and the development. And hopefully, because the other thing that happens with change, it forces us to make choices. That is what it's all about, are the choices we make. So before this all happened, I was not a huge believer in channeling. Let me
Okay.
put it this way. I always felt when I listened to a channel, there was a nugget in there that was true and meant, and I could take that to the bank. But I would listen for an hour and maybe get one sentence. I go, yeah, that's it. That's why I'm listening. That one thing. Because I also thought, channelers are so different from one another in the way that, and I realized this is their energy field. The information is coming waffling through their energy field, and how much of them is in this mix. And I wanted the pure thing. I wanted the straight, the poop, the straight poop. I wanted that. So I just kind of had a standoffish relationship with channelers. When I was told to make these workshops, I didn't have anything in my lexicon because this was a brand new thing. Well, how do I even talk about it? What even is this? What kind of workshop could I do? And I had been a teacher. I had been a producer. I'd been a director. I'd been like, I was used to being on a stage and organizing things and, getting things buttoned up. So to be asked to teach about something I didn't know what it was extremely uncomfortable. So I would sit down with my dowsing rods, like, help, please, somebody help me. And I'd sit down once a week and I had the date and I had the room, I had the weekend all set up, and I had a whole month to figure it out. I'd sit down with my friend and I with my rods, and she was prepared to type whatever came out. So all of a sudden, so I'm with my rods and I'm asking questions. All of a sudden, everything slows down and my voice comes through, really deep and slow. And what came out was the very first time, I'll never forget it, was a practice, an entire practice. Things that I would never have thought of. And I experienced myself moving to the side and these words dropping down like in a chute. And I'd get the word one at a time like this. And I'd just speak the word that was coming next. And I didn't have any foreknowledge of the next word, right? And so I got to the end of it. And when we read it back, it was just this beautiful practice. I had already been in the habit. I had a weekly meditation group, and I had 7 crystal bowls, and I played the bowls for every meditation, just sound, no words. So I would douse then about which bowl would like to sing with this practice. And that happened 3 times, 3 weeks in preparation for the workshop. And then I would play these things and with these channeled practices. And I had to go, and because I had this doubt about channeling, I was terrified to reveal these things because, anyway, I didn't. I thought either they're going to cart me away or this is going to have some meaning. And it ended up that it did. And then that repeated itself. So there were 9 practices over the course of 3 months, 1 weekend a month, and that was an entire workshop. When I got to the end and I looked back, I realized that it was a step-by-step blueprint for taking your next leap on your spiral of spiritual evolution. It was step by step. I couldn't even believe it. Okay, I'm gonna weave this back to the whole change thing. Because we were being taught how to be copacetic with change, how to break out of our framework of thinking that change had to be hard, long, and a struggle. It was partially just a matter of moving out of 3D thinking, which is dualistic, right? Yes, no, black, white. It's either this or it's that, which is this tug of war, right? Struggle. That's the 3D modality. But what if we pop through into another place? What if we get up and out of the ceiling of that 3D reality, and all of a sudden we have more options. We don't have to identify where we are, but we're not in 3D only anymore. That's what the wave helps us to do. That's what we were learning in this first workshop, this 3 weekends workshop. And then that was repeated 2 more times, three more months. And we saw with our own eyes, we saw incredible change happening with people. And it wasn't just 5 minutes a day. It was solid change. People who were going to get divorced didn't get divorced. People who were going to, who had no work got work. There were so many people whose lives fundamentally shifted. But the most important aspect of this was that their joy was higher, their joy quotient was off the charts through the change. Okay, so that is a different paradigm than what we have been used to. So yes, expect change, even if you prepare. And I think preparation is fantastic. And it's preparing your mind to think that this is impermanent. That's brilliant. And yes, because that's the whole point of it. And if we have a tool to get out of either or, I call it yes and. Yes and takes us right up and out through the ceiling immediately, because all of a sudden we're holding more than one reality at one time. Yes, it's this and it's that. And then we can even add more on, it's also this, it's also that. Okay, now we're living not penned in, fenced in by 3D. So I think in a way, the last 5 years have been a gift. And I don't say that lightly, because there have been many losses, and there's much about it that is tragic. And it's also the push of evolution that we were told about, because it's forcing us to go through our peduncles, to change our lives, so that our outer lives are a reflection of our inner lives. So if we are desiring to shine up our soul on this life path, we're going to be asked to make choices, and those choices are going to define how we adjust our souls.
Our world around us has shifted so much. You and I grew up in a very different time, and we grew up in a time where there was a really strong sense of American exceptionalism in the world, and there was a sense of what felt like morality in being American. And through lots of different reasons, we're seeing a time when we don't have that sense anymore, really, as a society, and certainly as thinking people, that it's unquestioned that America is all that is good in the world. And not to get into any sort of political discussion per se here, just to simply say that this shift, it is a shift in what we can expect out of our lives, what we can expect out of our economy, which is certainly linked to all of that. But our culture is changing. Our expectations are changing. Our ideas of retirement are changing. Our relationship with our neighborhood around us is changing. And it feels very dark. It feels very hopeless. It feels very sad. And I know a lot of people are trying to deal with that. And what I see in a lot of these people that are having the hardest time is that those are the people who are trying to hang on to old ways and old thoughts, and that kind of heightened view of us and our old society as being real because what we're kind of finding out now is that it wasn't really all that real.
Yeah.
And so dealing with the fact that we're finding out that so much of what we thought was real is not real. So much of who we believed in are not people to be believed in. It's exceedingly destabilizing to a civilization. And it can be really difficult on mental health, on stability for people. And it feels to me like what you do is you help people prepare for any kind of change, for the hope through any kind of major shift. And so, maybe this is kind of more of a global question for you. These major changes that are happening in our world, what do you see as the means by which our people can use to lift their spirit, lift their consciousness, and so that as we see, particularly in the next several months, and this is being recorded right now in July of 2024, that as things progressively change and probably become more difficult and dark, how do people ensure that they are embracing the highest form of themselves and being less pulled into darkness?
Oh, well, okay, first of all, the way that the unmasking has happened
Mm-hmm.
to show us, to reveal to us what is real and what isn't real,
Yeah.
I also see as a gift. It's a painful gift. But then we are left with the question, well, what is real? And for me, what's real is, when you get down to it, it's my soul. It's my belief that I have a reason to be here and that I chose to come here at this time, because this time is really the pot over boiling with opportunity to grow, right? So I chose this time as a soul. I believe that's real. I am, as a soul, I am forced to understand, or come to some kind of understanding, that there's something bigger than me, that there's some kind of mechanism that is wiser than me, that's more loving than me, that I exist as a fractal, as an extension of that thing. I mean, these are the existential questions. When you're asking what's real, you have to go to the very base of it. Well, am I just a body with a brain that thinks, and I'm not connected to anything else? No, I don't think so. All our masters for thousands of years have told us otherwise. Are they out of their minds? I don't think so. I mean, when we look at cultures that are more successful in their community structure, there's civilizations that recognize that we belong in a very concrete way to the earth, that we have influences from nature, that we have influences from elsewhere, that we are not just little minions running around all individually, not connected. No, we are a whole, what's the word? I'm not mechanism, but we're a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
We're
An
a
ecosystem.
collective, and
Yes.
we are connected with one another, and we are, whether we recognize it or not, connected with the earth, and we are, whether we recognize it or not, connected to something bigger. Okay, so those are basically the things we can say are real. And beyond that, I don't know how much we can say. I really don't. But all the changes that, and when we get to that question, the changes that push us to the question is, what is real? What can I rely on? Well, I also know that I have the capacity to love. I know I have the capacity to feel compassion, and I know I have the capacity to feel empathy. And as of this moment in my life, could change tomorrow, but as of this moment, I have a capacity to act. I can move my body around. I can write emails. I can send money. I can go to the grocery store. I can act. I can move. Now, not everybody can, but I'm saying I can. I know that's real. So I know that I have certain faculties. And that's about it when you boil it all down.
Hmm.
But I think the gift is that it's pushed people to that place where they maybe have been unconsciously moving through their lives, not thinking about their souls, not thinking about the world around them, not thinking about their connectivity to everything and their impact on the world around them.
Right.
Right? So this tool, this little cute infinity wave is a way for us to return to that flow state quickly and easily. So if we start to, and I can give you examples so that it's easier for your listeners to understand, but we don't, as I said, have time to go to the cave. We may not even have time to sit down and meditate in a moment that is fraught. Let's remember, we all see it, we all know, speaking of changes in our neighborhoods and changes in our society, when you pull out the underpinnings of all of it, everything gets destabilized, everything's very shaky quaky. That makes people nervous, that makes people, their adrenals are on high alert, that makes them incredibly reactive. So something that may not have caused a big issue before now causes a big issue. People screaming, people, fighting in stores and people, whatever, because everybody's tapped out because they haven't quite gone through this inner resources bit to figure out what they really can rely on and who they really are. But if you have a tool to either deliver to yourself in a moment that's fraught or to someone else who's in your environment in a fraught state, quickly we send this infinity wave. Everything starts to melt. Everything starts to calm. When love and compassion come into the realm, it changes the whole dynamic. And that's what the infinity wave, it's an image that represents this energy. So it's so simple. You could teach it to a child in about 15 seconds. But it's so powerful that it changes the reality on a dime. So would you like to hear an example?
I would like to, and I'd like to learn this.
Okay, super easy. Just like, we talked about Dr. Emoto, we talked about Veda Austin. And by the way, if your listeners don't know who Veda Austin is, I'm just going to spell her name and say, go look her up on YouTube. It's V as in Victor, E, D as in dog, A. And then Austin, like the city.
Mm-hmm.
She has been doing remarkable work for 10 years with water. I interviewed her last month for the second time, and it's just thrilling what she's done. Anyway, okay, so back in that first year of the workshop, so that was 2011. The wave came in the end of 2010, started the workshops January 2011. And by the way, I had never had visions. I was not used to walking around with a figure eight in front of my, like, I didn't even know what a vision was like until this happened. And I was quite uncomfortable with the whole thing, unnerved. I mean, what's happening to me? All the walls were shifting. Everything was moved. Everything was very, very wonky. And I was starting to live in another world. Let's put it that way. So this is what we would call losing our minds. And losing your mind is part of the journey. And it's an important part of the journey when you jump off the cliff. Anyway, I looked around online for infinity signs. Now, the infinity sign itself is an ancient symbol, right? There's nothing new about that. And it's been used by many healers. It's been used in Qigong. It's got its own magical properties, that figure 8. Then you add the water in, and then I went on this whole water rabbit hole dive, because that's when I learned about Dr. Emoto, and that's, this is going back a number of years now. And so it's the fact that they're combined is significant. So anyhow, I looked online for signs for the infinity sign. Where is it showing up? Because I know if it's coming to me, it must be coming to lots of other people. They're collective unconscious. It's going to come in somewhere else. I didn't find it anywhere. I looked in packaging, logos, jewelry. I looked everywhere the whole year. What that original vision had said was the energy is going to be flowing around the earth and anchoring in at the end of 2011. Okay, so I looked all the year. I didn't find anything with the infinity sign. I also came up with this term conscious evolution, because what it seemed to be asking of us was that this evolution wasn't happening in the background anymore. It's happening right here in front of your face. And you get to make choices around your evolution. So you're conscious of how you are evolving. So I came up with that term, and then I looked for that online. That was nowhere, except for Barbara Marx Hubbard had a little mention of conscious evolution, but it wasn't really around what we were doing. But nowadays, if you look up conscious evolution, it's everywhere. And needless to say, if you look up the infinity sign, it's in everybody's logos. They don't know why, but they're all drawn to it. So I'm just going to tell you this one cute little thing, is that in January 2012, first week of January, I went and ordered a cappuccino. And when I went to pick it up, somebody had put the infinity sign in the foam. And that was the first message, because it said, we're anchoring in at the end of 2011. There it was. And from there, it has grown and grown and grown till a couple of years after that, it was the #1 tattoo for women. It just came on the scene exactly in the time frame that they said it would. Okay. Well, so that first year was very, very interesting. And I evolved a tremendous amount through giving these workshops and receiving. I was right along with all the participants, learning and growing and changing. So in early December, like December 10th, my girlfriend needed very delicate surgery on her neck. She'd had a car accident, and she needed a surgeon who could do bone, nerve, and muscle, because her right arm was numb. We had to fly to LA for this surgery, and I went as her advocate. My friend had studied how to do hypnosis before surgery. And one of the things that they had said to do was to write out what you want the anesthesiologist to say when you go under and when you come out, to program the subconscious mind. So she had done that. And she had written it on beautiful Italian paper with scrolls and colors. It was gorgeous. And so we went through the whole admission process. We're waiting outside the surgery room for the anesthesiologist. It's the last thing before she's going to go in. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And meanwhile, my friend is justifiably nervous. This is going to be, this one false move and she's paralyzed. So she's, kind of shaky, quaky. Of course, we're doing the wave on her and all that stuff. Finally, in comes this petite woman, middle-aged, with a clipboard. She's got on this surgical cap that looks like a little mini pizza hat. It puffs out. I've never seen anything like it. And it had like little red flecks on it. Anyway, she comes in. I'm sitting at the foot of the bed. She comes and stands opposite me, facing me. She's got her clipboard. She never even looks at her patient, my friend. And she just starts rattling off all this medicalese about what we're going to be doing today. Blah, 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 very fast. Blah, blah, blah. Like no humanity. She's like a frozen robot.
Right.
Okay. Now, a year before that, in the old Hope, I would have said, "Oh, would you mind? My friend is really nervous. Could you just, comfort her a little bit?" I would have done something, to just because I could see my friend her lip was starting. Yeah, she was getting teary. This was going to be a problem. But that's not what I did, because I wasn't the old Hope. Instead, I went, "I don't like this picture." In my mind, I said, "I don't like this picture. I want a different one." Kind of like Tabitha, like kind of quicken
Yeah.
my nose and blink it into something else. And so I said the words, "I like your hat." Very no inflection, no warmth, just "I like your hat." And at the same time, out of my solar plexus was this boom, this pop. I felt it. And it went to her. I realized that it was like a wave, excuse me, like a wave bomb or balm or burst or whatever you want to call it. And the woman's head, she's going boink like this. She looks at my friend. She says, "Hey, babe, how are you doing today? I want to take care of you. So, what do you have for me? You want me to say this to you as you go? I love it. It looks like a recipe. It's so beautiful." Chatty Cathy, warmth, effusive. The the dynamic change was nanosecond, was so dramatic that both my friend and I went, I mean, our mouths dropped open. And if it had been a cartoon, our eyes would have gone like this.
Yes.
It was incredible. And what I love about that experience, and that she went on to take great care of my friend. And afterwards, day after she came out of her anesthesia, my friend said, what happened with that doctor? I was about to ask for a different doctor. And all of a sudden she just became little Mary Sunshine, and, was so warm and wonderful. She said, I told her what had happened. And I said, "I'm so glad, because I have a witness, because I would have doubted my own eyes and ears if you hadn't also seen that." What I learned was a couple of things. One is, and this gets back to the question about manifesting. If I had set an intention for what I wanted that doctor to be like, I think it would have been a smaller picture than what actually happened. What actually happened was that, who knows how many hours this doctor had been up? Who knows if she had sick kids at home? Who knows how many patients she had seen, how many difficult cases? Maybe somebody had been lost, right before us. Who knows what her reality was before that? But the wave knew, and the wave delivered to her the burst of love and compassion that woman needed to rise to her highest and best. We don't need to know the backstory, but the wave has an intelligence all its own. It knows what is needed. If you just wiggle your nose and say, "I don't like this picture," and let the wave do its work, miracles are going to happen. Reality is going to shift on a dime.
Yeah.
And we don't need to contain it by our little intentions. Now, does that mean we don't have intentions? No. It just means leave space for the unknown. Leave space for an even better picture that might be available. I also learned in that experience the power of the wave. Until then, the wave had been a lot about gentle change, peaceful change. You asked about how do we let go of these backstories?
Yes.
Well, we do it with love and compassion. We don't do it with a hammer. We do it with love and compassion. We use the wave to kind of work with our systems, with our fields. with our memories. We say, please let the wave flush it all out with love and compassion for how it has served us. Because it served us in some way. It wouldn't be in our lives if it wasn't there for service in some way. But let the wave just carry away the detritus that is no longer needed. And some of those practices that came in those first 9 months have to do with that. The gentle flushing away with love, compassion, and gratitude. Gratitude for the way those stories have served us in the past, but no longer do. It's part of my tapestry. I can pull the whole thread out if I want to, or I can leave a remnant just to remind myself, of my former self. And so I love to let the wave do its thing and be that gentle flowing source, but also when it needs to be a wave crashing on the rocks, let it do that also. And people have asked me in the past, oh, but don't I need to ask permission first to use the wave on someone? And that's a question I asked. And I was told there isn't a person walking on the planet who could not benefit from more love and compassion. If for some reason their fields are not set up to receive it, it'll flow right by like a river flows around a boulder. But the delivery of it, the offering of it, will never be not useful.
Yeah. Yeah. As you see more and more people, and you see more and more of these people embracing this concept of really being purveyors of light, I guess, in the world. What are you seeing as the effect overall of more and more people who are embracing this sort of thing and a greater consciousness coming?
So happy you asked that, Jeremy, because this is one of the most exciting things. And literally in the last 2 months. Okay, so first, when we were first doing these workshops, and I dowsed for how many workshops is a full workshop, how many weekends is a full, I dowsed for the entire thing. And it was hard to get it going, like, okay, really got to imagine this thing. And it took some heavy lifting. And then as time went by, I then shortened the 3-month weekends into a 3.5-day weekend. And I could compress it and people could get it. And the practices worked. Okay. And then as time went by, I was able to, okay, let's try it in 1 day. Let's see what we can, it's hard to do 1 day. But slowly but surely, it became easier and easier for people to do this. Now, 2 months ago, I had an interview with somebody who's, fairly well known around the world. And since then, the incoming wave of people hungry, getting it, wanting more, like it's all of a sudden, it's so present. It's so desired. It's being sucked in. It's being, it's incredible. It's so accessible. So now literally thousands and thousands of people are doing this and emailing me and telling me their stories. Oh, I used it here, I used it there, I use it on, it's changed my life. I can't get enough of it. It's like, oh, when are you doing more workshops? Like I gotta schedule a few workshops because it's here. It's here. It's present. It's if you know the term morphogenetic field, or egregore, everything has an egregore, so that the local church has its own egregore, the local town has its own egregore, a family has an egregore. It's a thought field. It's a legitimate, measurable thought field that exists.
Would you call it a mastermind?
I guess you could. I guess
Okay,
you
all right.
could. Um, there's a morphogenetic field around Christianity and around Islam and around
Uh-huh.
Judaism, and there's a morphogenetic field. So they're huge. They're around countries, and they're small. They're, within a friend group or a bowling club. It's a collective of bubbles. Think of it as a collective of bubbles. And the more you feed it, the more defined it gets, and the more distinct also it gets. And there are good things about that, and there are issues with that. When they get too hard walled, then when they bump up against other morphogenetic fields, it can be problematic, as we see in our current humanity. But the morphogenetic field of the infinity wave has been growing and growing over these last 14 years. And the reflection of that is this literal wave of interest. And they get it. They get it almost before they've heard the end of the interview. It's receivable. So I'm coming to believe that now is the time for all the 14 years of paving the way. Now is the time when it's going to exponentially reach. Yeah, go. I've been told by my guides that I probably wouldn't see the full flowering of this in my lifetime, but to consider myself the Johnny Appleseed
Uh-huh.
of this technology. And that was very comforting, because then I can just, chop wood and carry water and just keep seeding, and just talking about it and offering it. And I wrote the book for that. And they were on me to write this book for 10 years, and it took me a long time to do it. And partly because I wasn't ready myself to be seen on that level. And so obviously now I am. But yeah, so now it's starting to really grow exponentially, and I'm so excited. I'm going to tell you some quick little thing here. I went to the dowsing conference 2 weeks ago, and I gave a talk about the infinity wave and how dowsing and the infinity wave. If I hadn't been a dowser, I would not have known what to do with this. I wouldn't have any language. I wouldn't have any way to do it. So thank goodness that I'd been doing that for a long time. So I went to the dowsing conference, and I was talking about how these two things can work together and how the infinity wave can enhance your dowsing. And at the end of the talk, I had 5 minutes for Q&A. And this guy raises his hand and says, 20 years ago or whatever, I was really interested in remote viewing.
Yes.
And there's a book by McGregor or something like that, like a textbook on remote viewing that was from back then. And he said, when they remote viewed the future of spirituality, what they got back was the infinity sign. So that's interesting, because that's what my guides have told me, that this is the spirituality of the future, because it can't be corrupted. It's non-denominational. It will stand beside whatever philosophy or belief system you have and enhance it. But you can't, we're talking about it here using a lot of language, but it's, in the end, it's just a geometry made of water, and you can't corrupt it, So it works no matter what language you use with it.
How do you see is the most effective way for the individual who has become awakened, a person who is seeing all of this from, I guess, and I'm just thinking here, this kind of vantage point that a lot of us feel, where we feel like we're floating above this giant chaos, and seeing it for what it is, this kind of like power vacuum of a lack of the structure of a society that you and I remember from a long time ago, and we're floating above it, seeing it all kind of happen. How do you see the best way for people who are in that state to have influence on calming the waters around them?
Right. Well, another great question, because I'm in that place as well. And it can be very enticing to live 90% up there to stay out of the fray. But the truth is, if you think of the wave vertically, and it can be any size and go any direction and all of that, but we are in relationship to the 3D world. And the 3D world is full of juicy wonders, tastes and smells and the visions of nature. And there's so much, right? That's beautiful, let's just say, in the 3D world. And we opted to be in it and to use this as our schooling. So I think that the wave gets bigger. So you can wave down into the earth so that you stay connected with the earth. And then in equal part, you wave up. Okay. So you may have 6 feet above, 6 feet below. Now you are connected to 3D. You're connected to the earth, but you're also in a heightened state. So we would call this multi-dimensional living.
Yes.
Right? So we're in the yes and of 3D and whatever else. We don't have to define it. So one of the things that I learned through this process, when we say as above, so below, which of course that design says to us, as above, so below, right? Which is one of the beautiful things about it. It's so balanced, it's so equal, and you can look at it that way too. But the as above, so below is not how we think of it usually is, my feet are on the surface of the earth, and that's the below, and the above is heaven. No, the below is the earth. The below is this, and this is the above, and we're right there in the middle. Okay, so we're right in the vortex of the above and the earth. The spirituality of the earth is equal to the spirituality of the above, by the way. So when we start to think of it in that way, now we're these little people between the above and the below. The above and the below, neither of them can actually do things. They can give us messages, they can propel us, they can guide us, but we're the ones who have to do the doing. We're the ones who can pick up the trash. We're the ones who can go and vote. We're the ones who can send out prayers. We're the ones who can act. Like I said at the very beginning, what do I know is real? I can act. I can enact the messages I get from Mother Gaia, from the earth. I can enact the messages I get from my guide team and the universe. That's what I'm here to do. I am here to enact through guidance what is in the highest and best for me and for others. That's that incredible place that we're in. So now, if we know that, and we can stay in a flow state while doing that, we kind of stop pushing away the 3D. We accept it. We're just going to be in it in a flow state. Equally in a flow state with the above. It's a slightly different orientation. It's not so much about getting away from something, but acknowledging that our placement is perfect and that this relationship with the below and with 3D is for us. Life is happening for us, not to us.
So you do this wonderful work and you share it with people. And I know that you work individually and in groups with people. And so can you talk about the workshops that you do and how people can find you?
Sure. Well, there are two places people can find me. One is spreadinfinitehope.com. That's my website. I offer weekly Monday night free channeled meditations and all kinds of things. So come onto the website, sign up, and you'll get my weekly blog. I send on Sundays, and then on Mondays I send the invitation for whatever is happening that night. So that's one thing. I give annual trips. I douse for where I'm supposed to go. I've been to Peru twice, Easter Island, all the British Isles, southwestern France, South Africa, southwest of the US. This year it's in Shasta. It's full. But yeah, so next year we'll see where we're going. I douse in the fall to figure out where we're going. So that's fun to kind of get on the bandwagon for. The other thing that I do is I work with a wonderful man, a composer named Gary Malkin. And we have a website called you-awake.com. And we offer a couple of different workshops. Because we've talked so much about change, I want to tell you about one of them first. It's called You Awake, Mastering the Art of Change. We do these online and we do them in person. And the reason I'm working with Gary, aside from the fact that he's a wonderful thought leader and an incredible musician, all my meditations are done to his music, by the way, is because after this 5 years of incredible change that has been foisted upon us, some people are still kind of frozen. And so we've come up with a 4-step process to help unblock that. And we start in one place, and through this 4-step process, we emerge in quite a different state. And that all happens in 6 hours. It's
Amazing.
remarkable. So that's one of the workshops.
That's fantastic. I love that. You know, those transformational moments in group, like in ceremony, where the intention is set and a new consciousness is gained and you walk away with this sense of like newness and freshness. That's really, really important and something that everybody really should be engaging in.
Well, you know, one thing I've learned through this whole thing is that we don't change so much through words, but we change through personal experience. When I went into those sound healing sessions, I was changing through an experience. I didn't know what the end result would be, but through the experience of the infinity wave, that's what's changed me. So our workshop is born of offering a poo-poo platter of experiences, if you will, to guide people so they have their own. I don't want to be I'm not a guru, right? But I am a chef. I'm offering opportunities for people to have pick what they want and go through a series of experiences. So the other workshop that we do is called Graceful Passages, going from grief to gratitude. And that's based on Gary's seminal work, Graceful Passages, which I highly recommend everybody to download and have in their mix, because it's really dealing with loss. It's grief literacy. It's dealing with loss, but it's also dealing with making big changes, like maybe transitioning out of this life, and helping both the person who's going through that and the family members, the friends, et cetera, et cetera. Every death doula, which I am, or end-of-life midwife, which is the term I like better, hospice worker, anybody in that field, palliative care, should have graceful passages. And so we offer that workshop as well, once or twice a year, online or in person.
All right, here's what I love about you. I love not only your sincerity, but that in this time that we as a society, as a civilization, are walking into or in the midst of this endless soup of darkness, this kind of overall sense of a lack of knowledge of where we're going, that there are guides out there like you that bring light, that you bring clarity, that you help people prepare themselves for dealing with the unexpected, for being confident in the unknown, and for really sailing uncharted waters with grace for oneself, and that you help people detach from ideas that have been hurting them, concepts about themselves that have not been helping them, that you help explain in a very tangible way to people how they relate to the beyond and how they relate and ground into the earth. You're helping people with stability. You're helping people with light. You're helping people with understanding how to traverse a world that really none of us ever saw coming, per se. So I want to thank you for coming here and sharing your incredible gifts and the things that you do that help the world be a better place. So thank you.
Oh, Jeremy, thank you so much. I'm just doing my best. One little person walking around.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to Mindful Mutiny. In a lifetime, there are more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest form of yourself is the most rewarding thing that you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of you. Now go be something great.